Politics is endless public disagreement about what justice requires. Justice is a state in which honor and opposite according to the contribution different groups make to the welfare of the public. When we talk about justice, we may be describing an ideal, sketching a utopia, stating a grievance, or advancing some cause. And it is always important to ask, in any particular case, what function is performed.
So, according to the definition of the first paragraph, justice is the distribution of honors and positions according to the contribution the different groups makes to the interest of the polis. According to further research, justice is also the continuing controversy over various claims or doctrines on the standard of interest distribution. Can we master long sentences? Do we need long sentences to help us think? Please think about this question. Which type of thinking form relationship does this type of thinking have with abstraction? The first question and the second question are not the first and second relationship. Why?
Most languages allow for the construction of infinitely long sentences through relative structures, but speakers can restrict the length of such sentences in order to ease communication according to their own habits.
If you use long sentences to express complex logic, you will often resort to a variety of definitive symbols. The increase of the frequency of use of those definitive symbols, they're only confined to the interior of a professional researcher whose goals lie in the area of convergent commensurability.
In Mandarin, for example, the adverbial modifier is placed in front of its central concept. This particular structure limits the length of the fixed element, forcing the language's inclination towards the utilization of short sentences, simultaneously allowing the thematic mechanism to maintain the primary content throughout the sentence.
The sentence that Alexander just stated attempted to make a special representation of logic. And to achieve this, he deliberately expanded the fixed element when communicating, while progressively exaggerating the logical complexity of his internal structure.
The main idea within a sentence can be clearly understood by the receiver, so long as all the primary ideas have been expressed.
Yeah, well, your sentence can also be regarded as a performance of scientific action. Stanley, please take a deep breath. Slowly. Yeah. Now feel your body. Your body slowly softens and merges with the chair. Feel your body. An electric current delicately touches your head and flows through your body, from your trunk to your limbs, cycling. Tell me, what are you saying? So, why you didn't do your homework?
Mr. Walker, I did, but
what? Everybody else handed it, but you haven't.
Yesterday, I forgot to bring it in.
Lie, continue to lie.
Mr. Walker, I really did.
Okay. Don't say it, okay? Just go back, transcribe the book 10 times, and bring it to me tomorrow.
I got a question, Stanley boy. Why'd you score only 70 points on this? I mean, look at the little boy next door. Why can he score 90 and you can't?
Because
You know, I work myself to exhaustion every single damn day just for you to go to school. I mean, is this my reward?
I...
You know what? Don't make excuses. You're not eating tonight.
Yeah, let's take a look at Stanley work, because yesterday it was like using this. I don't know. Yesterday with the psychological evaluation, I don't know if she said getting better or wrong. We'll see along the class. Okay? Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay. Morning. I would like to start today's class with a story.
In an old house in Grafhelfing, on the outskirts of Munich, there lives an old man named Georg Salzmann. He was just 3 years old in May 1933. I, Volker Wiedermann, a journalist, went to see him when he was 78 years old. In December, the sky was dark like lead.
Before the start of World War II, my father and my grandfather were both little Nazis in Munich, with little power but great enthusiasm. One day in March 1945, my father told me that Germany was about to experience her greatest failure, eventual demise, and the extreme misfortune that come with it. That was all that awaits us. He announced that he would kill our entire family and then commit suicide. In the end, it was only my father who committed suicide.
Volker was drawn to the only portrait in the house, a small portrait. It was most likely his father.
Later, I experienced everything that befell our country, everything I had believed, victory, justice, hope, all collapsed. Everything I had believed almost completely disintegrated.
All that his father believed completely disintegrated. His father had two beliefs, so there were two collapses, one in 1918, one in 1945. He died following the second collapse. His father's death, to be precise. Does this second disintegrated belief have any sensory connection with the depression we studied? Please take notes and ponder this after class. Did Salzmann's father have to die? As the second disintegrated belief inevitably led to death?
Why did his father die but others didn't?
You're bringing up the theory of victim blaming. Again, may I ask you to be kind?
Well, you can be
I mean,
upset
there are
with me.
many in this world, but I suddenly want to insult you. Only you.
Okay. Okay, Stanley and Jacob. You can insult me all you'd like, and you can be upset with me as much as you need to be. It doesn't really matter much, though. Do you see the value in life, fancying suicide?
Are you saying that life is so important that all beings can ignore all morality just to live? And as for the tragedy of this father, we can only comment that he was not the best father. A normal society should not place unreasonable standards for the survival of its members. We cannot blame someone for not being good enough.
After the war, I went to the Buchenwald camp, where the British soldiers arranged for me to speak to a former prisoner. I hadn't realized where these prisoners had been. At that moment, my entire worldview was upended.
So, pay attention to the vocabulary. The protagonist uses the term worldview, in German Weltanschauung. It seems that only the Germans use this term in a daily life, like a language. My question is not this. My problem is that Salzmann himself said that his worldview was completely reversed. Did Salzmann's generation of Germans ever have their own worldview? Did Salzmann's father generation ever have their own worldview? In addition, from the transition from frustration to fanaticism, did they ever have a worldview based on rational thought? If not, it's a zero. If it is a zero, there is no change following a reversal. It remains zero. Frustration, fanaticism, they're both emotions. A kind of interference. But still nothing changes.
Well, Salzmann's father was destabilized twice in terms of his worldview. Once for the failure of 1918, and then for the more complete failure of 1945. The two zeros being reversed together should be like an internal nuclear explosion, right? Like U-235. I mean, his life collapsed internally at that moment.
The professor and Dara are thinking in terms of formula, but Salzmann is only summarizing. The Germans only generalize. They generalize everything, including things that couldn't be generalized.
Except for the German Jews, right?
Well, if Salzmann had used perhaps a broken bottle to change his worldview, I have a feeling we wouldn't have as much to say.
Broken bottle, yeah.
Coffee's ready. I don't want to ask for your preferences one by one. What do you think I should do right now?
A few years later, Salzmann inherited his father's patrimonial mansion in Thüringen. Living there was an arduous task. In the year 1953, he moved to Federal Germany's provisory capital, Bonn, to join a loan and credit business. Around 1975, he was sent on a business trip to Bremen. Back then, when Salzmann got off from work, he would only stay in his bland and vacant apartment drinking beer. It seemed like he was avoiding something, like he was living in a world where his perceptions were all turned upside down. Random memories were flashing back into his mind, spinning and shaking. It seemed never to subside. He felt useless, with the exception of drinking beer.
I mean, theoretically, you must choose between depression or alcohol to fill the empty pit of your time, right, Professor? I mean, is this scene even worth noting?
The professor doesn't have to answer you, Jacob, but Miss Patrick can help you record.
One is a decision, the other one is a sin. You are responsible for identifying which is which.
And Professor always says, practice more, just in case everyone's IQs aren't high enough when we kickstart the Black Sheep Lab project.
The days of drinking in solitude continue. One night, the neighboring antique dealer took me to a party. A group of people sat around a table discussing esoteric poets and books.
After 1918, Germany's newspapers often would report on a mysterious phenomena like that.
Reminds me a little bit of how my morning coffee will tell me if I need to turn right outside my front door or not.
I received an assignment to find a speech by Ernst Weiss. I set about it with a passion, day and night, stay on track, determined not to let my soul mission waltz end in failure. In 1976, in 1976, a journalist named Selke published an interview with an author who had survived the book burning incident. I liked this interview. It was a boon to my mental state. It gave me the reason to fight the war of life for the next 30 years. I cannot find the words.
Well, in May 1933, when he was 3 years old, the Nazis burned banned books. In 1976, he was 46. When Volker Bederman visited him, he was 76 years old.
As a father of three, I've never been on vacation with them. All my time was spent walking every inch of Germany in solitude, like a confession of guilt. When my neighbors, my wife, my kids, went on holiday in Rimini, I could be found in flea markets.
So his grandfather was silenced after 1918. His father, completely so, after 1945, right? All the fathers of Germany were silenced after 1918. Silenced again after 1945. Now this Salzmann looks like he's silenced too. I don't know. I think in reality, though, he's actually active in another place. He's just active where his children can't see him.
Can you please tell us which type of silence is your father in?
Oh, I would absolutely mind.
Oh, my first silence. The next or eternal silence. Anonymous silence. The silence behind erupting volcanoes. Would this study of these silences help to interconnect with what we research for the treatment of depression in the Black Sheep Lab?
Guys, let's stop talking about this ideology. Let's give up on it.
Okay. Abandon which ideology, Jacob? Are you thinking the silence? I'm thinking that silence has more to do with than just the fathers. We can talk about this later, though.
I object.
I've collected 12,497 books. Each stack is immovable.
When I was reading this story, the author abruptly inserted a sentence that changed completely the point of view. His original phrasing was, I was following the elderly Salzmanns through those passageways. It was an utmost pleasure. I mean, why Biederman interrupts here in such a preposterous matter? Why the use of extravagant language? Why does he wander so far off the point? Is that common for Germans, or it was distorted by Hegel?
Perhaps it's Zweig's sperm that had caused the issues here. We're all familiar with this German Jew, but weren't his books burned, or are you thinking they were burned too late?
I've collected almost all the books that were burned in the incident. The Antichrist, sea monsters. I've collected the works of common, mundane authors. I have pieced together a complete collection of the George Ehrman series. One day, a petite young woman, a PhD candidate, came to visit. She stood before a shelf, the very shelf with the George Ehrman series. She was baffled, thinking of all the time she could have saved going from bookstore to library to library to bookstore. All the time she could have saved researching all of this.
Well, when this PhD degree candidate found such cruelty that had nothing to do with her research, did she let it go?
Nope.
But this cruelty isn't zero. It is reality. Mm-hmm. Although it can't be recorded in research or proven by equations or theories, this cruelty has taken place.
And how many times have we even touched upon this concept of zero?
I've collected the works of Rilke, Thomas Mann, a complete set of the works of Stefan Zweig.
Stefan Zweig. I propose a principle. Despite that Stefan Zweig mastered the skill of constructing stories with logic, wordplay, he was an elementary student when it came to common ideas and common sense in regards to the most intense matters. In the future, when we study Joseph Roth and Stefan Zweig by comparison, we will begin to understand how Stanley assisted Alexander over the course of his research by studying ourselves earnestly. The outline of the proposed principle is that Stefan Zweig's intelligence, in terms of sheer logic, has hindered his awareness of common ideas and common sense. His obliviousness about common ideas had impacted his effectiveness of his counterattacks and polemics against the Nazis. Those are not the ideas that I want to talk about today. What I want to talk today about is about Stefan Zweig's farewell letter before he died. You can pass it to her. In the letter, he mentioned, "All my friends, behold the breaking dawn after the long night. I am a very impatient man. Therefore, I will betake myself first. The patience or impatience mentioned in this quote is the living specimen in our research about depression. And it's also a public will that is an hesitant in the face of science and ethical issues.
Millions upon millions of Zweig's works. Around 10 million copies are sold every year, but the majority of people who make purchases are doing so purely for nostalgia or developing better rhetorical skills. If you don't actively find a way to translate the work in such a way that your brains can understand them, then we are no better than a layman trying to study for the SATs.
What type of intellectual was Stefan Zweig?
Well, the historical nostalgia and the development of rhetorical skills can be understood relative to Zweig's patience.
I am dying. What shall I do with my collection? I know my kids are not interested in inheriting this stuff.
I mean, for so many years, his children never understood why he had actually been collecting the historical works.
Do you wish to speak about the subject of the father now? You know, his hidden thoughts, his silences, his failures. I mean, we can discuss anything about him.
Yeah, I'm in no mood for it, actually.
Okay.
This is not the ideal place for me to express my opinions. Okay.
Well, they've never said so. I have a strong, self-conscious feeling that my kids are not interested in the collection. And I know that my subconscious feeling is accurate.
Salzmann's children could never possibly appreciate his work. He was obsessed with the books, which isolated him from them.
Let's write down the isolation that Ms. Patrick just mentioned. Isolation that is felt. Intuitively, can this point us in some direction?
I've offered my collection to various institutions. The University of Erfurt responded to my offer. The major fields of research of the university are based on ideas that are irrelevant to these books. And these books are useless to us. Useless. I thought of a shelf in a public library devoted to my rarities, with transcription services available to those who might be interested.
A bright flame burns eternally, and dark nights in exile that are cold and cruel, being the subversion of zero, transformed into hundreds of trembling souls in the library of Graffelfing. A pompous mind focuses on the illusion of millions of burning books in the bright flame.
I'm pretty sure you studied the wrong major.
I have received requests by both the University Library of Heidelberg and the Library of Nuremberg to house my collections. I think Nuremberg would be the better choice. The mayor has written me telling me that My collection should be in their Nazi History Center. He would make it a priority. It would be at the top of his to-do list. They would set aside an independent exhibition area for my works with research people and librarians. It would be an energized public space.
Okay. I can understand why he wants to create a public exhibition space for Salzmann's collections. But I am not sure what the mayor of Nuremberg means when he says he wants to make it an energized public space.
I wonder where the mayor of Nuremberg spoke with the old Salzmann when they decided to get the whole matter settled. I mean, they may have communicated by meeting at City Hall, that Graffel thing, or by exchanging letters. I think it's impossible for such complicated matters to be discussed over the phone.
The word energized would sound like a joke when it comes to communicating over the phone or face-to-face. I mean, using the word energized to describe a public space would be rather awkward.
Listen to yourselves.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I chose the right major.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I'm not included in your reference to yourself.
Yes, sir.
My collection will soon be transported to Nuremberg. Nothing will be left in Graffelfing, not even me. My soul should travel with the collection to Nuremberg to remind people of the 5th month of 1933 when Hitler rose to power. This cannot be forgotten, not even when we fall.
Is remembering the most important component of what Salzmann recounted? He said that he remembers when he was still a young man, his father had told him that his entire perception and worldview had collapsed due to Germany's defeats in World Wars I and II, but that he thought his father developed a sort of conscience after perhaps reading Marx and Hegel, or maybe it was subconsciously implanted through communist propaganda. But he didn't think his father had bothered to skeptically think about any of this. Ideas that are accepted without any thought are tantamount to nil, and nil equals 0. Technically, yeah, nil can be reversed, but the results are the same. If, like a failed idea would be better than an idea that hadn't been thought about. A failed idea could be equated with a fallen 0, which is like an oval, so it has shape. Whereas an idea that hasn't been thought about is 0 by itself. And 0 by itself couldn't stand up to any attacks that were made on Nazism.
That has nothing to do with.
Have you ever experienced deja vu? What?
Have you found a confidant? Oh. Or do you have a close background in your past life that has been transformed into the deja vu? Or are your understandings of aesthetics and beliefs highly recognized by the other one? Or you have helped your confidant to resolve his dilemma thanks to your guidance. Deja vu. Miss Patrick, you mentioned deja vu. Can you build a coordinate system for all those things that you just mentioned? You mentioned a deja vu, but you never add any relevant content. We cannot fill it for you.
Whoa.
All the related information, all the pictures in your head. Well, they can make connections, yeah. But without that coordinate system, You cannot make any logical association. You can build that coordinate system. Just use those questions. Little by little. What do you want to say? What you don't want to say? Say it. Add it.
The current deja vu and the deja vu mentioned before are different. Miss Patrick's deja vu may be a source of discomfort. And there are many different sources of discomfort. Your assumption is of a malfunction, being shamed, being disgusted, being spat in the face, forming an unacceptable physiological reaction, accelerating the heart rate, finding someone to talk with, crying, swearing, and it's okay. And swearing.
Professor, you are old and shamed every day. You are too old to start over again. You see yourself as the elite in your field, as famous. Tell me, why do you tolerate someone who spurns you day and night?
Remember that self-comparison.
Don't say elite, just say yourself.
Okay. Look, looking at my own dissatisfaction every day, yeah, I need courage.
Yeah.
Observing at my own dissatisfaction every day, that goes against humanity. Why should I do that? Maybe it's a function of talent or luck. I don't know. I have no answer. I don't know. But now that I have that talent, I actually observe my own dissatisfaction and I enjoy it.
Wow.
This is the source of your coordinate system.
Where?
Politics is endless public disagreement about what justice requires. Justice is a state in which honor and is distributed according to the contribution different groups make to the welfare of the public. When we talk about justice, we may be describing an idea, sketching a utopia, stating a grievance, or advancing something. And it is always important to ask, in any particular case, what function is performed.
What function is performed?
No. In fact, public offices are generated by election, right? Okay, the interest and the contributions to the policy are not always the most significant indicators.
A city-state wants to demolish 2 small bungalows. So the government sends out the proper workers to complete the project, and then the proper factions and parties with the election arrive at the location once they hear the news. What is the superposition of the election on this?
Well, the delusion of benefiting from this project has led the different parties to attack and blackmail each other with electoral bayonets. Based on their situation, each faction sets tasks for itself to attack its surrounding enemies. Now, this even includes the trafficking of confidential information and selling false information. But trafficking information is relatively simple compared to the corruption of trust. In this situation, trust can be defined as faith that other people put in you or this situation, and to corrupt it, you utilize this trust to raise your position in order to obtain complex benefits. Now, this can be profitable for a politician throughout the short term because the benefits are too minor to be taken into account during the election. Now, if an individual's identity is split between the election and the engineering process, a disorder of the nervous system will develop. And then the politician's actions will be similar to that of a middle school student.
Society is rather unstable. And a little bit of excitement can cause big changes in events that then lead to bigger events and changes down the line.
Yes.
But then in time, these big changes can just turn into a new normal.
Yeah, deliberately muddying the water by constructing the illusion of a piece of fat meat and manipulating the crowd to see the fat piece of meat in an exaggerated manner and planning to be the only one who can seize the meat. I mean, once you see the fat piece of meat, you can never ignore it.
So first you make a plan and then you share it with others? and then you revise it so you can go against it.
Isn't this methodology?
This is methodology indeed. Finding the node to reconcile the different parties in a quarrel is the key to muddying the water. First, yeah.
Preserve your energy. Contemplating this is it's a difficult task.
But recitation can strengthen the brain's abilities.
It's
Absolutely.
more like stretching and increasing the size of your brain.
So I am recounting a short story. A stranger bought a garden in the center of a plot, and then built some high walls around it. Well, now there are many square holes approximately the size of a bullseye dispersed across the walls.
I am very, very frustrated with myself because I have no literary talent and I respond to information in a slothful manner, right? And due to these circumstances, I've just decided to sit back and learn in the most rudimentary way. Throughout the process of gathering all this very useful information, I allowed myself to capture events that occurred during a specific time period in an obtuse manner. But my purpose for writing this narrative, for telling the story, is not to have something published. Okay? All I wanted to do was investigate what distress is, what depression is.
Jacob?
What?
You're flying a little too high. You're floating to Mars.
I wish.
Come back to Earth.
Listen, Miss Patrick, Jacob here is on the right track. I mean, Stanley is the one who's daydreaming without an origin or a specific subject. But Jacob here has recorded every event that has occurred here before our eyes. I mean, therefore, his thoughts belong to a specific origin. I mean, he is an attendee of this seminar, just like every one of us here. And he's sitting with us. He's not squatting in front of us and posing his camera upwards and preparing to take a shot.
I heard the sound of your voices singing in that room pervade the air until they reached me, and then suddenly that room became a black and white photo in my head, while your voices were drowned out by this sudden change. And I knew for sure that you fellows were singing. I just had no idea what you were singing. And I can't stand the idea of being oblivious to the content of your guys' songs, so can one of you please help me and save me from this quagmire of oblivion? This is my last summer here, and after this, I will no longer need to suffer.
Miss Patrick, please, can you tell Stanley what we were singing about before and whether the summer has come or not?
Of course. The summer had ceased to arrive because the professor tired of the blaring horns, which were coming from within the tall walls. What we sang about was, I could see the rays of sunlight on the horizon. And if you looked out into the water, you could not see the past underneath it. You will never find me, whether you're right here with me or on the horizon yourself. But should we ever meet, we will age together or stay together until the end of time.
A bunch of superficial nonsense.
Well, from my objective perspective.
Alexander, instead of starting with from an objective perspective, when you start a sentence like that, you should say, through my rational thought, I have developed the idea of love. How many times I told you that? How many times I warned you about? 7 times? Not to assume an objective perspective. None of our discussions are based on objectivity here. Neither do your expression.
But it's objective.
It's not about
No, sorry.
Come on.
Through my rational thinking, I believe the texture of Stanley's language is a result of his childhood memories. When Stanley starts speaking about his nightmares or your memories, his consciousness floats out into the world, and it pervades random spaces without an anchor. While the events that he's remembering are transferred into the superstructure of his own subconsciousness, superimposing images from the events that you remember. Please.
The coffee maker begins to rumble while another cup of coffee flows out. My subconscious nightmares have evoking a memory of Dora. And this is my last summer here. And after this, I will no longer need to suffer.
Fellow students, please pay attention to Stanley expressions. It's the first time Stanley uses the name of a real person as a rhetorical device to embellish his expressions of his subconsciousness. And he used Dara. I'll ask you all now to reflect on what just Dara said before.
Dara has mentioned general feelings of rootlessness and floating in oblivion. I think Stanley has root, but lacks dirt, dependence, and foundation. It seems Dara has given us the first tool towards helping to treat Stanley.
Yeah, I mean, Stanley's nightmares have been going on and on for quite some time now. It seems today we finally encountered a breakthrough.
Ding dong, ding dong.
He flipped open a random book by a Jewish author. He writes so fucking well, reasonable, and not excessively sentimental. He read the book aloud.
Every weekend, hundreds of young men of the lost generation, stripped of their youth, will be marching through numerous nameless hills and woodlands. Wandervogel was the most popular movement that spread throughout Germany during the 1920s.
This makes me think of my mother dancing in the community square.
Every weekend, my father would go out and run a half marathon.
What is a half marathon?
A half marathon is 21 kilometers. Alex, come on. You were kind of similar to that Jewish author who lacks common sense, but who hides away in the game of chess.
It's called Zweig. Zweig.
Huh?
Zweig. You all possess good intuition. Melancholia is a challenge that every human being has on a genetic level. Everyone will face great falls in the reality of their lives, and those falls mostly occur when you are very high. They can occur when you are dancing in the community square or when you are running a half marathon. The young men that joined the Wandervogel, they were fighting the depression that haunted Germany in the 1920s by hiking from one hill to another.
Well, is it true that those young men were fighting both concurrent depressions of emotion and economy from 1920 to 1930 through the process of wayfaring? I mean, they hiked for 10 years. And what peak did they arrive at?
They arrived at the mountain of Nazis and Nazism.
Yeah, okay, well, what I am interested in is another focus of this. The focus of this topic is the disease known as depression, which spread throughout the pre-Nazi Weimar Republic. And almost every German was infected with this particular disease, including Salzmann's father. I mean, all the German men could only wander the streets with their heads down. No one dared to look another person in the eyes. The only group that had this disease lifted from themselves were the young men who participated in the Wandervogel.
Guys, can we stop talking about this topic? It's nothing to do with this. What I'm interested in is a discussion about the communal melancholia of German citizens. Depressed fathers have nothing to do with this.
So are you Are you saying that all the men who went to war collapsed in the face of defeat?
What I think Jacob is trying to say is that the young men no longer had their fathers to look to. So they participated in the Wandervogel as a way of forming their own faith.
The seminar can end. Your homework for tomorrow is going to be to think about this question. Which concepts we do despise discussing? Use actions to describe the concept through the process of observation. Do not provide reasons, because your reasons cannot be verified.
The cadence of the music carried a hint of chilly solemnity. I can see my chopsticks and several important pages of research that flash back into the memories, that flash back into my mind, and the chopsticks were placed on a crimson piece of fish flesh while your voices, and random memories started to appear. And flash back at a faster pace, and the glaring eyes of a fish fixed to stare on the fish flesh, the chopsticks, the gaping mouth that was about to devour the fish. And all of my classmates were just laughing at the scene. Come on, go get some coffee for yourself so you know that this isn't real. And these scenes that may have once happened have become a reality. And the only way to break through this illusion is to drink coffee. Coffee would never appear in my illusions.
How about we sing a song?
Oh, Jesus.
We are dancing in the square, in disregard to being responsible for others and the environment around us. Will we be held responsible for the questions caused by our charge? La 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 la, we are dancing in the square. La 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 la, we are running a marathon.
When studying knowledge, we will also simultaneously experience the romance in mathematics and stories. And throughout this process, we are injecting ourselves with these romantic genes gathered from this process into our own minds. But as we inject ourselves with these romantic genes, we're also infecting ourselves with the virus of melancholia. And Ms. Petrick's song is it's a large example of a melancholy virus, and her song infected the audience as she delivered it.
So I have another question. Why did these people form pedestrian organizations? How did they discover each other? What did they discuss in the deep woods?
Can we discuss the stigmatization of the white left?
Is there any relation between the two?
We are always looking for corresponding people.
Okay.
What are you trying to say? How would you phrase that?
I have been studying the Marxist groups from within the revolutionary team. For everyone in this classroom, we can all be crowned by the words white left. But how will the next generations be characterized or be titled? if you want to look at even the remote possibility of any socialist solutions, they're the ones you're going to have to talk to. They're the ones most likely to adopt such policies. The next generation, the younger generation, has a vested interest in the future of their country and maybe radical paths that could take them to a better.
How is this statement concerning the future and fate of a country a real Marxist structure? It only takes several waves of ideology to develop a grand solution.
We're all interested in building better futures within our own country, but all of this comes from at least a kernel of a bourgeois concept.
What is the relationship between striving for the better life and the fate of your country?
How can you put your faith in your country when your country seeks to earn a profit off of you?
Those who think about the think tank and those who joined the labor union, they both were looking for a better position to succeed. At the same time, no one seemed to feel a radical.
Whoa.
Now I give you a round of applause. Go. Don't be late for whatever you have next.
What's going on? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What?
A king wishes that all the citizens in his kingdom possess at least one chicken and at least one accurate watch that keeps on ticking perpetually. Cars sweep past the silhouette with a speed that surpasses time. The man in the ward encases himself in many rays of white light at his random memories and illusions flash back inside his mind. The numerous illusions will appear and disappear, pushing themselves in and out of his mind in an endless cycle.
I see flashbacks of fish flesh, chopsticks, and a gaping mouth. This is my last summer here, and I will pass without any regrets. I will eat fish. I must eat fish.
Bohemians are different from Lubeckians. Bohemians are different from the Bavarians. They find exile a somewhat good accomplishment. They yearn for a life of exile. They mock Bavaria's belted pants. They dare to pronounce the wish for exile from within their hearts.
Where are they going?
The Bohemians are from everywhere and nowhere. They have no destination. This is how they achieve the spirit of exile.
Well, cars are more important than watches and chickens. At least when you have nothing left except a car, you can still go into exile.
I mean, that's ridiculous. A king that would want every citizen to own a chicken. Comes out of nowhere.
I know. Well, this king's idea of equality through chickens would never come true. Like whenever a utopia is attempted, society would be thrilled at the thought of having such a utopia. But really, having a perfect society is like a curse to human civilization. Huh. When he went out, he had a chicken on his back and a red carnation in his hand. Oh, look! He said, I have a chicken on my back and a red carnation in my hand. Oh, you're so welcome. Join me and we will bring the world happiness.
Utopia!
Oh!
I casually flipped open a book regarding World War I. Of course, it was one of the books that was purged in 1933. I'm standing on the streets of Nuremberg but I feel as though all of Graffelfing is on my shoulders. The German troops fought hard in Verdun. That's World War I. The clergymen told us that we would win if we prayed daily and if we were confident enough. The colonel told us that we should never doubt ourselves unless we want to lose this war. Countless Brits were assembled in Beeman and on hill number 344. We all knew that Germany was losing the war, but no one dared to admit the truth. My heartbeat began to quicken as General Ludendorff raised his hand. Our lives depended on this one act. Novelist's remark spoke on the lips of a field officer, also from Alsace, in a hushed voice. During peacetime, this general was just a typical countryman. He must be from Saxony. The colonel's eyes suspiciously regarded Remarque. Then he looked at the hand of General Ludendorff with his skeptical countenance. If we win this war, Germany's economy would boom, and we would be awash with money. We would all please ourselves with luxuries while suffocating from the abundance of food. If we lost this war, we would all become melancholic women. But no matter the result, we must face the end. I would never become a true descendant of a Prussian Junker because by then I wouldn't even be able to find my own roots.
Another scene flashed back into my mind. It was another one of those of my worst memories. My primary school teacher pointed at my nose while he spat out saliva and unpleasant words while roaring at me. What he said, I can no longer remember.
Okay, come on, everybody. Fellow students, pay attention to Stanley expressions. Whatever any information that we receive is going to be crucial for our study.
I felt as if 1,000 kilo of heavy ice was pressed upon my chest. Oh, 1,000 kilos of heavy ice was pressed upon my chest.
Coffee?
I need some coffee.
Yes. Stanley speaks of the gaping mouth, and the bulging fisheye, and the chopsticks, and other seemingly random scenes that have dissipated into oblivion. Even though they've all dissipated into oblivion, they still come back at random times. And when they come back, they weigh heavily on his heart, affecting his reality and his sanity.
Stanley, mysterious laughter has been chasing me, it seems, for years and years. Just like that. It makes me want to run. I feel like I'm running as fast as my legs take me, but no matter how fast I run, I feel the sensation of mud just dripping on my face as I run.
Guys, he's infected. He's losing his sanity, just like Stanley.
Alex is the only one who likes wearing those the face masks. I believe this is why Alex doesn't seem to mind days of fog and haze, because it gives him a good excuse to wear one. I think this is because he can't get over the illusion of having imaginary mud drip on his face.
I'm going to write a letter to myself.
Right, letters, yeah. Writing letters. That'll help. You know, I wrote a letter once. I wrote a letter to a girl that I saw every day, and she never replied.
All right, everyone. Let's pay attention. Class is not in session, so let's sit around and talk and gossip. All right, Jacob, you say that you once wrote a letter to a girl. Of course, go ahead, Stanley. You once wrote a letter to a girl that you knew, but that she had never responded. Mm-hmm. Are you sure she never responded? Did she at least give you a little bit of a hint? I would look back in the past and be brave about it. See if maybe she at least gave you just the littlest bit of a hint.
Yeah, maybe. She might have given me a little hint.
Okay. All right. I can't help but provoke you just a little bit. Why is it that you remember the first part, that you wrote her the letter, but you don't remember the latter part where she gave you a hint? Is this just part of human instinct that we remember a lot of times the first parts of stories, but then not the latter parts?
It is part of a human's natural instinct indeed. I mean, parts of this can be verified and established. In addition to food, human beings also seek to entertain themselves from time to time, and experiences containing too much shame or cruelty would automatically be filtered out of a person's subconscious mind. As Homo sapiens progress, our ability to survive has improved simultaneously. And soon, we no longer need to focus ourselves on the danger of daily starvation. At this time, the weakness represented by the desire for entertainment has returned to our lives. And at this point, we have earned our first ability, the courage to attempt a new life.
We tend to ignore those subconscious emotions when they're behind our arguments or our desire to argue with each other. Sometimes we deny those emotions exist.
Right.
And how can we learn to observe such emotions multiple times? I mean, it's a difficult solution, which is almost impossible to learn and even more difficult to teach to other beginners. So it would be stupid to attempt to learn this solution multiple times.
Well, the aim of arguing is to overcome the opponent's argument. And now there are two common methods to win, right? Which is to win by reason or to impress the other participant with momentum. Now, these are methods in different dimensions that mutually benefit each other. During a debate, the concealment of such subconscious emotions that has produced one's desire to argue would automatically be filtered out of a person's subconscious mind. Now, this short-sighted reasoning has encouraged people to make the choice to conceal their emotions.
Bada bing.
But if reducing arguments can bring benefits, then learning strategies to observe such subconscious emotions will be extremely beneficial. Now, many people will become emotional during a debate in order to increase their momentum or to win. But really, this desire to win, it's become a trap for all debaters.
The maxim, anything that exists must have a reason, but it doesn't mean that every single event is reasonable. The reasonable of an event depends if an explanation, logic yet scientific, has been given to explain that event, and that explanation must illuminate similar events.
Rational existence has become a modal word in Mandarin, but in English, because something takes place no matter how unreasonable it is, it's just expected to be reasonable because it happened.
The rule of rational existence is considered a reasonable and rigorous judgment of relative science and academia-related fields. But in one's daily life, the meaning of rational existence is actually to let it go. Let it go. This is a fucking bad day. I will not ponder over events that are fucking annoying yet stupid. It is reasonable, no, tolerable for one who does not do research in the fields we study to use the rule of rational existence in a casual manner.
No. Dr. Hahn made his point clear on that on the very first day of class. It would be embarrassing if on the day we receive a PhD, the tools we utilize to think are no different than a woman shopping in a vegetable market.
This is so tiring. Even a woman shopping in a vegetable market, it's been drawn into our conversation. Now, let's play a game. If every student selects a word, you'll choose nouns to describe that word. We'll start with the word marathon. The first student will be Dara.
The word marathon has evolved from the legend of a historical messenger into a modern cardiovascular sport enjoyed by many. While one is running a marathon, they confront their own emotional abyss and continue to fight their own war within their minds, all in the midst of secretive illusions and depressing emotions lurking throughout his brain, which sustains his body.
Marathon. Chilly atmospheres transform into perspiration which drip behind me. A depressed butterfly flits just a little ahead of me.
Oh, to run a marathon. Don't worry, you're never running a marathon. You're not going to die running a marathon, sir. You're going to die elsewhere.
Marathon. Half marathon. Full marathon.
Oh, to run a marathon. Run, run. You keep running. You don't stop. As long as you don't stop, you can forget the collapsing stage, right?
Boom.
Enough. It's enough. Coffee is the hero. Yeah. And marathon is just a grizzly bear. We should return to the story of Salzmann.
This book was written by Carl Jacob, a Jew who spoke German and lived in Budapest. He was a bank clerk until he moved to Paris to join the anarchists. A Bohemian Jew and a German Jew were chit-chatting in the Royal Garden Cafe of Berlin. The German Jew was speaking in an anxious manner. Charge toward that white wall in front of us. He held a stick used by hikers and explorers and just never put it down despite being in a cafe. His queer habit was due to the fact that the German Jews had been exiled from their hometowns during World War II and now led a nomadic life. Although they were exiled, their hearts were still filled with deep love for their homes in Germany and the sense of justice possessed by a loyal Jew. Turbulent times have come. Not only had the ground given way beneath the Jews' feet, but the entire German society had descended into a state of turmoil. When other races endure this wave of anti-Semitism, we will become a miracle through this process. When experiencing this wave, we would no longer know how to use one part of our body to resist against another part of our body. And on many occasions, we will accept ideas without filtering them through the mechanism of skeptical thinking.
Okay, what the hell? How many types of Jews are there? How many races, tribes? It's really confusing, actually.
Alexander can give you a simple answer.
The issue isn't how many different tribes of Jews exist, but rather how many were recorded by contemporary historical textbooks in Europe. Now, this Jewish issue is restricted to German Jews that made a collective oath. Foremost, we are German. Secondly, we are Jews. So when German society fails to recognize the first part of that oath, the principal problem becomes that Jews don't know how to abide by that oath. Every Jewish child of Germany grew up reciting this maxim: I am a German person, this is where I belong. An oath like that would absolutely resist the process of subversion.
From now on, I will record the public oaths of each of the students. Text me if you have one.
But we're talking about hometowns. There's love in a German, but there's a sense of justice in the Jew. A Jew from Eastern Europe would be completely detached from nostalgia. Like Salzmann was saying, the Jews from Eastern Europe had developed, were now in their exile. So they now led nomadic lives. They would live in Poland or some rural areas in Russia, and then they would make their own communities that functioned on their own resources independently. So they wouldn't fall in love with Poland. They wouldn't fall in love with their so-called home nation, like Russia. They wouldn't even know which country they belonged to as a result of the recent wars, so how would they know to which country they belonged? It would be very difficult to subscribe to nationalism without knowing one's nationality. Of course, then some of them decided to leave Europe, and the textbooks labeled them as the Jews of Eastern Europe. But within Europe, they were known as Eastern Jews. Well, unlike Adolf Hitler, their struggle was only to survive tenaciously. Trotsky and Rosa Luxemburg are accepted of irregularities, but exceptions result from accidents. Pondering over if something's an accident or an irregularity is illogical and simply a rhetorical device.
Let's get back to the main story. Who was sitting across from the Jew in the cafe?
Thank you.
I suppose you mean the Bohemian Jew? The German Jew can speak German, and the Bohemian Jew can as well, because the cities in the Bohemian region do speak German. But although they can communicate, the German Jew would never know the pressure of 1,000 spirits residing in the mouth of the Bohemian Jew.
I was born in the wrong place.
Well, no Europeans, not even the German Jews, know where these Jews with their latticed clothing, their defiant behaviors and floral accents originated from. So I'll give you a simple example. Who's Franz Kafka? Who's the good soldier Schweck? These fathers are not good things, so fuck you, I won't fight your wars. That's what they said. They'd desert the army, or surrender, or play tricks, cheat for money, fall in love with a girl.
I already said it, I was born in the wrong place.
Not necessarily. Okay, you weren't born in the wrong place, but born in the wrong time. I will now answer Jacob's question with a more sophisticated explanation. I will construct a new type of Jew, okay? A fictional Jew, an abstract Jew. His name is Hans Sellen, and his family's Jewish surnames are not known by anyone outside his family, unlike the surnames Jacob and Zweig. Now, in May of 1933, he fled to Copenhagen and began to study the history of the Jews. And while exploring history, he came across the story of the Arabi family that was expelled from Spain in 1492. Well, Sellen, he immediately recognized this Jewish family and resonated with the strong traditions maintained during the 1400s. Thus, Sellen immediately decided to adopt the name of King Solomon and chose to rename himself of Joseph Arabi. Now, throughout this process, he declared publicly that he despised his erstwhile life and wrote a novel. Yes, your loyalty is noble and great, under his new name. Now, in the novel, he described the story of a German Jew and an Eastern Jew who became comrades and died together. Now, although they were not born together, they died together. And throughout this process, he mutated into a new species of Jew, the abstract Jew. Now, of course, he deliberately left out the bohemians in his novel because he had no strategy to induce them to invest their passion in a great career. And in the novel, there was a Jew dressed up as a circus clown who deserted the army because he had no clue which country to fight for.
A group of impressionistic Jews show off their banners, promoting Zionism, hoping to find a place to belong. The Rabbi family live now in Philadelphia, and they are prone to hide from society. I never understood why they converted to other religions. Throughout the process of concealing their new identity, they don't remember where they come from, who they are, or what are they going to do. The real descendants of the Rabbi, which family has a long surname, they don't understand why their family are raising the flags supporting Zionism and forgetting their identities. Are ancient matters a course for current society?
Well, I think that even a guy who rants about history on an unsophisticated television show has already begun the work of changing his own origins and changing his genealogy.
Starting tomorrow, I will label everything and everyone from within this laboratory. Whether it's the Chase Lounge, or coffee, or computers, or the professor. And I will wait until all of these things have transformed into something new. Once everything is transformed into something new, I will go through and relabel them what their new thing is. I've decided with the coffee, I'm going to label that hero. Woo. Because it seems to help Stanley. Yeah. I would label Marathon the bear, but it's not a physical thing that can carry a label, so I'm not sure really what to do about that one. I will label myself me.
Why not Cleo?
Thank you. Cleo is simply an abstract concept.
Are you going to change profession and become an author in the future?
I don't know, but if I do, then I'm going to make sure I don't become an ironic one. I don't want to use my own feeble intelligence to prove my stupidity.
I believe you were referring to a sarcastic Betty show.
I wish to ask the professor a question. Will Germany still be Germany without her Jews?
That answer, the question, it will be answered right after it's been asked.
What is the answer?
The history of Germany has already given an answer. Whenever Germany ponders over that question, an apocalypse will be inevitable. To know the answer, you will have to ask against the Germans.
Are you saying that when a problem is raised, the first step is to return it to whom it was related, instead of seeking the answer immediately? Is this what you call your abstract validity of a question?
Yeah, yes, that's the abstract validity of a question. It depends on two prerequisites: to whom you return the question, and if that question will raise up more questions.
This is was said by Hegel. We Germans have always had follow-up questions. Perhaps because we never understood what it means to return a question to whom it is related.
Indeed. The German Jews, they always had a genuine answer for all the questions that they were supposed to answer, no matter if they were living in New York, Philadelphia, or suffering concentration camps. That is a deadly question that nobody dares to ask, because it is concerned to the greatest massacre of the past millennium. The Germans are afraid and shamed to talk about it, and the Jews didn't speak about it because it's barely put forth in the open. Most part of the Jews have lost their own identities. Therefore, only the Germans who understood just the first prerequisite will remain, for sure, confused.
I want to resurrect all Germans, have them cooperate, have them answer in the open.
You have already expelled all the German Jews from Germany. They went into exile. They're coming from everywhere and nowhere. They mutated into other species. They are no longer the Jews, the original Jews from Germany. They were scattered. The Jews from Germany, they existed in a historical way, in a historical sense, but they have vanished in a practical sense, in real story, in real history, in society. You can ask that question, but an answer will never be found.
I understand this. This is Kant's law. The interpretation of questions is a principal matter. The occurrence is a matter of time, different categories, different types of matter.
Mr. Salzmann, I encourage you to not be emotional about it and to not charge ahead with reincarnation. Do keep in mind that reincarnation and resurrection are two different things.
Maybe Mr. Salzmann was just in need of some coffee?
Maybe.
I don't know how to finish this class today. Vera, you should imitate the ringing of a class bell in your computer several times.
These Germans are too fucking disciplined. These Germans are too fucking disciplined.
This old man will not howl at me. This old man will not howl at me.
Well, seems that we have established a new rule. From now on, we dismiss class with a computer.
Politics is endless public disagreement about what justice requires. Justice is a state to honor and distribute according to the contribution different groups make to the welfare of the public.
When we talk about justice,
When we talk about justice, we may be describing an ideal, sketching a utopia, stating a grievance, or advancing some cause. And it is always important to ask, in any particular case, what function is performed.
What function is performed?
You mind?
Oh, no.
Okay, well, I was just going to say, reconciling the current situation between the two opposing parties, cheers, it seems impossible. I want to intervene, I do, but I'm afraid I'm going to burn myself over the course of the process. I want to be the arbiter, I do, but I can't.
Listen to both parties and let each of them talk for 5 hours.
5 hours. Look, as the election progresses, the two multilateral conflicts have evolved into two military powers, increasing the intensity of the conflict. You may consider to play the opposing party against both parties and become the common enemy. You will be then building the structure of the three kingdoms, and you will force them to separate and disperse their ammunition.
Please take a break. I have an announcement to make. Tomorrow, a committee will be here from the Education Bureau conducting an inspection, and they will have some questions. You will all tell them that you purchased your school uniforms voluntarily. You know what to say, and if you answer them incorrectly, you know the repercussions. That's all. Carry on with your class.
Thank you. Well, let's back to class. Today's key point is sincerity. Sincerity must be the highest standard that all of us abide by. So the essay for today is going to be about sincerity. Please write it down and hand it to me tomorrow. There's another task. Please remember all. We have the inspection team coming next week, so we all need to remember our schedules. 3 o'clock, we finish classes. 3 to 4 are allotted for sports, extracurricular classes. Music and art are 4 to 5. As per the displacement of art and music by math class, we are not allowed to mention it. Is everyone clear on that?
Mr. Walker, when you said clear, were you referring to the essay regarding sincerity, or voluntarily buying school uniforms, or the displacement of our music and art classes by math class?
Stand outside for an hour.
This is all your fault because you wouldn't buy the school uniform for me.
Oh no, what happened? Don't you already have several sets of the school uniform?
I got punished and had to stand outside for an hour because of you.
Oh no, this is Mr. Walker's fault, not your fault. You did nothing wrong. You didn't, the school has to explain this. What in tarnation? That damned girl, I tried to offer her consolation and she wouldn't accept it.
Play dumb when talking to her. Consolation through language and reason can blunt her emotions temporarily, but has no actual effect.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, we can work together and discuss how to deal with the school and these recent events, but even when friends console each other, all the listener does is listen. Only an idiot offers positive responses. She will learn the strategy that you are demonstrating sooner or later, and she will respond based on that. This is a better way of approaching conflict than reasoning with a kid.
There is no rationale in your reasoning. I'm merely trying not to affect her decision-making.
Of course. Of course. All of us develop friendships by caring for friends, but that enthusiasm is completely useless when it comes to actual challenges. Consolation offered inappropriately is like boiling a frog with slowly rising temperature, harming each other in the process.
Yeah. You see, filial relationships do not need to be maintained, but friendships do based on different characteristics and personality types. Some communication through ability and experience can bring some sort of solution, which is excellent, but if not, there are methods that we can use to, of course, build the relationship anyways. You're interested in finding the solution, that's it, so that needs to be your focus. I'm interested in growing and building the relationship, and then down the line, hopefully finding a solution from there. The three of us need to be focused on bringing our friendship to a whole other level.
A king wishes that all the citizens in his kingdom possess at least one chicken and at least one accurate watch that keeps on ticking perpetually. Cars sweep past the silhouette with a speed that surpasses time. The man in the ward encases himself in many rays of white light at his random memories and illusions flash back inside his mind. The numerous illusions will appear and disappear, pushing themselves in and out of his mind in an endless cycle.
Oh, I see flashbacks of fish flesh, chopsticks, and a gaping mouth. This is my last summer here, and after this, I will no longer need to suffer. I want fish. I want fish.
Bohemians are different from Lubeckians. Bohemians are different from the Bavarians. They find exile a somewhat good accomplishment. They yearn for a life of exile. They mock Bavaria's belted pants. They dare to pronounce the wish for exile from within their hearts.
Where are they going?
The Bohemians have no destination.
Guys, cars are more important than watches when traveling abroad, right? Even without eating chickens.
That's right. The king that wants every citizen to own a chicken.
No, you cannot do it. Carrying a chicken on your back and a bundle of carnations as you wander, you cannot.
I have always hoped for Mr. Salzmann's appearance. I want to ask him questions. Questions about fathers.
Would you want to talk to him about your father's shortcomings? His lack of direction? His impotence? Are you thinking one of these things or all of them?
I think I can help you bring about Mr. Salzmann. In May 1918, Germany lost the war. And all the proud fathers bowed their heads. And Salzmann's grandfather also bowed and shut his mouth. In 1945, Germany was completely obliterated. Everything in ruins. The faith and the reputation of the Nazis went with it. What was once the profound belief of fathers in Nazism turned to dog shit. And Salzmann's father, he couldn't stand the pressure. No, so he walked to the torrential river, tears flowing from his eyes, alone, in solitude.
Stop. Please, stop. Whoa. Do not continue.
Calm down, old man. I'll have Stanley get you a cup of coffee.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. My father has had too much pain and despair. No one can stand a second abandonment.
Oh, really? Yeah, you say that no one can stand a second abandonment? I will tell you a story to falsify that. A German, moreover a Jewish German, was the host of a Hamburg radio station and a father. And below is an excerpt from his diary. Standing on the streets of England, with poor English and a reviled German accent, living a bland life with no friends. I cannot describe it myself, since those shameless German Nazis have taken away my voice. We returned to Germany in 1950. I've just experienced the life of exile in what was once my home. Such cruelty. But I've yet to cry out a tear. I have no tears left to cry after London.
German, Jewish German, same pain, same emotion.
No. Welcome then, abandoned. It's not the same as just being abandoned. It's not even the same as the second abandonment.
How about we sing another song? Welcome exile, welcome exile, welcome to exile. Welcoming exile in your own home. Abandon, then abandon again, abandon a second time. I know it's different, I know.
Must Germans face these differences?
Are there differences? I mean, why face them? These questions only exist when faced with a German.
Honestly, the dimension of your thought process is beyond me. When you were in school, I was merely working in the countryside.
That's because you have expelled all the Jewish Germans. Before, you just would have left the complicated questions for the Jewish Germans.
I'd really wish for us to return to the topic of the father. Please.
We will return to the topic of father another time, and I'll bring you coffee. But we'll have to wait a long time, because no one has more tears to cry.
Since we decided on dismissing class on our computer belt, my power to dismiss class is completely gone.
Living in exile isn't easy. A tiger turns into an ill cat. Returning in exile isn't easy either. It gets worse.
I'm thinking of a location. The Café Odeon, the Royal Garden and Palace of Berlin. Leon Furtwängler, the preeminent Jewish author of the time, and Hitler, still a young man studying the arts, were both regular patrons. They didn't know each other, they never spoke. Perhaps occasionally they exchanged glances. On July 1st, 1921, Furtwängler got up quickly to leave. Young Hitler got his coat and handed it to him. Furtwängler was confused by this act of kindness. He was Leon Furtwängler, the best-selling author, but clearly this short German did not come from noble family. Furtwängler quietly thanked Hitler and left and ruminated about this event. But those thoughts soon dissipated.
No one should help me fetch my coat ever again.
My future boyfriend will help me fetch my coat. This will be something I insist upon. Should I insist that he fetches my coat, or should I insist he doesn't? I'm so indecisive.
Well, I have never bought a coat for myself. And from now on, I will continue to buy clothes that only fit above my waist.
Yeah, unlike all of you, I can't abandon my overcoat. As long as I have my coat on, I don't know, thank you, I experience an inexplicable sense of security.
So, coffee used to be the hero and marathon used to be the bear. And this morning, coat retrieving became the problem. So, coffee, hero, marathon, bear. And coat retrieving is the problem.
I will soon sort out a literature review for all of you. And the theme's going to be, pardon me, the coat. So that's what we're talking about all day. The coat, the bones, the blood, and the soul.
You strange bunch of American people, you're driving this ancient German crazy. I'm beginning to wonder whether or not I should resurrect.
Crazy. There are no madmen in this world.
Why do you say that?
If a man is sick, weak, but he claims he's strong, the real reason why he's sick is because the way he lives is the only answer to all his questions. The existence of others is his way of self-affirmation. But at the same time, they make him suspicious of his way of living. So, he measures everyone with a single standard, but he's not aware of a single standard himself. He evaluated everyone with that single dimensioned evaluation system.
politics is an endless public disagreement about what justice requires. Justice is a state to honor and distributed according to the contribution different groups make to the welfare of the public. When we talk about justice, we may be describing an ideal, sketching a utopia, stating a grievance, or advancing some policy. And it is always important to ask, in any particular case, what function is performed.
What function is performed?
A company is set up within a city-state. And the company wants to build another city in the already existing city. And the side of the state that the citizens own determines their potential influence on stocks and select the representatives in 3 committees: administrative, governmental, and the Congress, all through the process of democracy. At the same time, the chairman of the company is appointed by the company, and the rest of the members of the committee, they all must have the capabilities to govern the corporation.
Yeah. So these guys are unified, but not governed, huh? Is this a characteristic description of the monarchy where the so-called democracy becomes a monarchy and the company is controlling the monarchy? Does the parliamentary staff follow the company's operating standards directly?
This is a larger and more severe example of the story of the advertisement of sheep's head that is actually dog's meat instead.
Can this become actual parliament?
Where does parliament come from? For this, the people don't give it the power. The government doesn't give it the power. The company gave the power to itself.
And why would the government disagree?
What happens if the contract's not signed? Just curious here.
Well, the head of the military will be the one with the final say. On this person's say, contract can turn into like a regular piece of paper.
Yeah, and why would the government disagree? They can pay no price for the resolution of many public affairs. And if something is not handled well, you don't have to take any responsibility for it because it is the city that was built by the company that becomes the scapegoat.
Well, I fear the head of the city that was built by the company will have more power than the head of the actual city itself.
This company is so ambitious to set up a constitutional monarchy as a fake democracy between 3 separate powers.
What happens? I mean, is there any separation between the 3 powers at all, Alex?
Yeah. Electoral Congress, administrative, and governmental. Oh, 3 powers after all. Jacob.
So the company assigns the chairman of the electoral committee. I wonder what they're up to.
Laura's depression is caused by the mismatch of 2 functions, the second theory.
Yep.
Her thinking ability is considerably faster than her ability to make logical expressions.
Is that what I am, Dr. Frank?
This is why you are so stupid compared to Dara. You are the same of those who are depressed, but with a high IQ. Of course, the cause is the opposite. Your expressibility is way better than your thinking ability. The results are the same. You both collapse from the inside. Now repeat what I just said.
And thinking ability is okay. I know every word. Okay, I know every single word he just said. I just don't understand him. What the hell is he trying to tell me?
No, you know what? Just don't even think about it. The more you think about it, it's just going to make you more depressed.
Yeah, no. Well, the patient has to take action, right?
No, what is there to make?
Jacob, repeat what I just said.
I don't want to.
You must refer to the first theory. You must erase the emotions that make you feel oppressed. Stop. We're discussing a new phenomenon, an uncontrollable factor in the subconsciousness of humanity. Jacob never takes notes in the middle of a class. It's always your job. Through my orders, I sent him through some sort of therapy, mental therapy, and he has started to type.
Wait, did I really do that?
Yeah. Your actions are just pathological factors. They're not the subject of any scientific research. It's just your mechanism of defense being activated.
Yeah. Are you sure that Dr. Frank Hahn isn't just a complete fucking lunatic?
The study in psychology is not the same as studying Taoism. Dr. Hahn is trying to get us to find a way to equate psychology with science. He upset you when you're immediately assuming that he is a lunatic, but that doesn't go hand in hand with what our studies are in class.
Cleo, it is normal that Jacob's initial reaction is to be apprehensive himself about verbal communications.
Yeah. Well, even an idiot like me isn't afraid of the words that you say, but I am afraid of the sudden seriousness in your tone.
This is the first time I've heard you refer to yourself as a fool.
Cleo.
Yes.
Do you think I'm behaving properly today?
The subjects of our study don't have normal problems.
Get up.
It's okay. They don't have normal problems.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Hey, Cleo. Can you have at least 5% of the normal range of human emotion?
I'm trying to see all sides of the story. I'm trying to be balanced.
Yeah, balanced.
And hear everything everyone has to say.
Jacob.
Are you actively trying to drive him into a deeper depression? If this is what you're trying to do, it goes against all ethical standards of our scientific study.
Maybe it's my pursuit for science was fucking manipulating my actions.
Great.
Why I'm doing, I don't know. Maybe I just cannot control it.
Oh, you can't control it.
You need to help. You need to help me.
No.
We cannot just let Jacob collapse. That will be irreversible.
Professor, just what is the German history you've been contemplating?
When Germany lost World War I, 1918, all the fathers of Germany fell into a state of silence. And gradually all the sons fell into the torrential flow of the Nazism. The monarchy, the German monarchy, was at an end. And simultaneously, all the so-called fathers of Germany were driven out by their children. At the same time, The younger generation of Jews, the educated Eastern Jews, the Bohemian Jews, all in exile, they gather together in Vienna, Berlin, or Zurich. They glad at each other, well, bursting into a nuclear transformation that destroyed every molecule inside.
And what happened? In the end, what was the result?
Explanations should not have always a conclusion. In other words, a conclusion in an explanation is like propaganda, God's manifesto, which is the Messiah.
The wind sweeps the snow into the breeze. I see my father walking midair. Coffee marathon, father and son. Coffee marathon, father and son.
Deutsches Volk, hilf dir selbst!
Is Hitler considered the father of Germany from a psychological point of view?
Hitler is not a father. And he's definitely not a father of Germany.
Mr. Salzmann, wake up! Stanley, bring him a glass of whiskey without ice. Mr. Salzmann.
Thank you.
I want you to recall some memories. Before your father left in 1845, did he mention a donkey, a pig, or any other animal that the Germans favored most?
Let me think. Yes. He mentioned a donkey. Nothing else. But before he left, he repeatedly mentioned a donkey.
This information is enough for us. Let's assume that your father repeatedly said, I am a stupid donkey in the past. Old man teaches how to say, I'm a stupid donkey in German.
Ich bin ein dummer Esser. 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 Ich bin ein dummer Esser.
At this point, the difference can be told. The German father will secretly whisper, I'm secretly a stupid donkey to himself. And Hitler will propagate this phrase publicly. Therefore, Hitler is not the father of Germany.
Is the father of Germany a stupid donkey?
This is not a good question. The question should be whether or not Hitler is a stupid donkey is an issue for the German people.
I cannot answer this right now. I want to be brought back to life. A resurrection!
Whether you want to resurrect right now is not a question that should be pondered over currently. For your logical inquiries, they should be placed in this order. For your father, maybe it's a question. You are unsure. For you, you must think about what type that question should be classified into. Conclusions, after you finish thinking of the question, cannot be communicated through words. The first step is always to think. And when you finish thinking of the question, the first step is always to think if the father of Germany is a stupid donkey or not is a problem for your father. And if it is a problem, what type of problem is it? Whether you want to resurrect or not should be answered in the future.
Der Vater von Deutschland is a stupid donkey.
Der Vater von Deutschland ist ein natürlicher dummer Esel. Should I resurrect or not? Der Vater von Deutschland ist ein notorious dummer Esel. Should I resurrect or not? Once this step is taken, I will be diverted from my own life. I will no longer live as I did in the past. Stupid donkey, stupid donkey. Stop saying the word stupid donkey! I am the real stupid donkey. What I have never understood is that even though us German Jews have separated ourselves from Jewish cultures in our daily lives, our enemies are still capable of sensing our Jewish origins. As a stupid donkey, I have always believed that the Nazis will go after the left wing and the lawmakers. As for an educated and wealthy man like me, a quiet and honest man like me, the Nazis will never go after. I was such a stupid fool. And that hasn't changed.
Mrs. Zweig, please leave your emotions and repeat the source of your confusion once again.
How come our enemies have a sharper sense of Jewish culture than the German Jews themselves?
Oh, yeah. Mr. Zweig, please repeat once again your words, but this time increase the tone when you come across the word enemy.
Even though the Jews have no sense of Jewish culture, how is it that our enemies manage to sense it?
Yes, remember that you mentioned the word enemy, expressing your confusion. And yes, the Nazis did treat you as an enemy. But for the Nazis treating you as an enemy, it was just an utilitarian step toward their own goals. Through propaganda they proposed that the Jews stabbed the German army in the back, that the Jews were the cause people were starving, that the Jews were plotting a coup d'etat to seize governmental power in Germany.
This is only a rumor.
The Nazis don't care about the substance of their propaganda. They can make out of rumors or facts. What they care about is how to use those rumors to secure governmental power in Germany.
Why did the German fathers not stand up?
The father of Germany is a stupid donkey.
Also a stupid donkey.
I will destroy all 12,500 books I have collected. I've used them to fight against the collapse of my father and the German father's perception of the world in 1945. My obstinate beliefs have collapsed. I want to resurrect!
Your obstinate beliefs 30 years ago were nothing more than a zero! It's still in reverse. It's still a zero. Running this 30 years on marathon has been your only mental support. Your decaying soul. Unfortunately, no theory has been formulated to explain a past or a depressive event in the future. Today, the first day of the marathon of 2018, 90 people wave at each other. You'll be there, in spirit. At that very moment, you will be revived. Remember, you must not cry.
Fish eyes.
Want to eat fish?
You don't want summer.
We
We don't want summer forever.